This week on Inevitable,
Devis turns the office into a gym.
Nathan does his job in the sauna.
And the Star Cop's definition of spying is knocking on the front door.
Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, a podcast where our expertise is destruction, because this week we watched In Warm Blood.
Written by John Collee.
Directed by Graham Harper.
And aired on August 10th, 1987.
Yeah. So I looked up John Collee, because we were like, does John Collee write for Doctor Who? No! But he does write Happy Feet.
Yeah, 20-something years later, or like 20 years later.
And the Legend of Tarzan movie that came out recently. So
recently, like 4 years ago.
That's recent.
Eh.
That's recent. 4 years is recent.
Last 3 years is recent.
No, recent is like 5 years.
Eh.
Yeah, recent is like 5 years. Well, here we go. We're officially 2/3 of the way through Star Cops.
Yeah, we're closing in on the end of the show.
Hell yeah.
What, you just want it to be over? Excited to get to Children of the Stones, which we're doing next?
No, honestly excited to get to Sapphire and Steel, though.
Which might be Season 3. Season 3 is a little up in the air. We received a lot of recommendations. And I'll just say the reason we kind of decided to do Star Cops and Children of the Stones right off the bat is not only because they were recommended to us, but also because they're really short and we wanted to just do 2 short shows right off the bat.
To get the podcast rolling.
Yep.
Too bad we picked the 2 shows with the least fan base.
There's Star Cops fans out there.
Oh, I'm sure they exist. That doesn't mean there's more than 12 of them.
I think you'd be surprised how much love there is for this.
You know what?
show.
Surprise me. If you're a fan of Star Cops, tweet at us or email us or do something to make yourself known. And if we get more than 12, then I'll take my words back.
But,
Until then...
The end. No, but like, how many Star Cops fans out there are listening to this, right? Like,
I don't know. We get a couple dozen downloads a week, so maybe they're just listening for us. In which case, you would just be proving my point. You would just be proving my point.
I mean, I think there are definitely Star Cops fans out there.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I am entreating them to prove it. I'm going to do the same thing for Children of the Stone, too.
Well, I don't think there are that many Children of the Stones fans out there. I really don't.
Okay. Well, so the episode begins with Star Cops Command trying to contact Pluto 5. I believe that's how this is going down.
Yeah, Pluto 5 is a ship that's sort of not made contact with anyone in a while.
Space station that orbits the moon. Kind of weird how they named the space station after like another planet in the solar system. Like, that's not confusing, but
maybe it's Pluto, like the god of death or whatever, or the god of the underworld, and they're all dead.
I guess that's also true.
So yeah, they sort of go and investigate, and Theroux has this blood-curdling scream that you hear over the radio or whatever.
Yeah, well, he sees a whole bunch of dead bodies just inside the Pluto 5, like mummified bodies.
Right. Meanwhile, a new character shows up on Moonbase. This is Dr. Anna Shun, the representative from Hanamed, the company in charge of the Pluto 5. Dylan is just shaking his head. Yeah, Anna Shun, I think, is somewhat of a weak character.
She's an alright character in concept, but you need good acting to make an alright character good. Yeah, sorry to say, but lacking in that department.
Yeah, she's played by, hold on.
Seyo Inaba?
Yeah. Or something along those lines. However it's pronounced.
She has a tendency to yell every single one of her lines.
Yeah, there's more of that. She is definitely, I think, the weakest part of this show acting-wise so far.
Nice that you say so far, like you think it can get
I
worse.
think it can. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Her acting is just not good for the most part.
For the most part. Nice.
But she's there. She's a representative, again, from Hanamed. But Cravenko has other things on his mind, namely the fact that his friend and colleague Christina Jansen has also cut off all contact.
Friend and colleague and potentially implied lover, ?
Really?
I kind of got that out of the scene later when him and Nathan are talking in that dark room where it's just the lights of the screen on their face.
Right.
Like the way he talks about it, the things he says kind of seems to imply that it was more than just friends.
Nah, I didn't get that at all. But then again, I hate romance in general, so like maybe I just
blocked it out of your memory.
Maybe. But the Star Cops have a lot to deal with, so they need to devise a plan.
Yeah, it's and like Divas, when you wait for a bus and 3 come at once.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan even says that. He's like, it never rains, but it pours. Cravenko's like, what was that? Nathan's like, English expression, you wouldn't get it.
Because you're
he
Russian.
Doesn't say that. But like, I feel like Cravenko was just saying, what was that? Because Nathan just mumbled it. Not that he didn't know the expression.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, actually.
But the Star Cops need to devise a plan. So Divis, of course, is training for his fitness test. Now, the first scene you get of Divis training is like him on a like a bicycle machine thing. Yeah. But the machine is off screen and Divis's body is on screen. So I was like, did they just not have the budget to buy this equipment and they're just going to keep it off screen? But no, that's not the case.
He's just sitting on a stool. Just wouldn't put it past the Star Cops team. Although still not seeing this bad special effects everybody says exists. Still not seeing it. So everything still looks good.
It's definitely low budget, and you can tell. I mean, just look at Richard Ho's office for that bit of info.
Okay, but that's not special effects. That's just like sets.
But even that, like, you can feel the like low budget like vibe.
I don't know. The Mondrian seems to have disappeared from Cravenko's office. I didn't see it this week.
They just they were only renting it out.
One of the production crew like lent it to the set designer.
Maybe it was like repossessed or something.
The bank was like, hold up. It's like that painting, that long lost painting that they found because it was like in Stuart Little. And like
what?
It was in Stuart Little and some like art historian was watching the movie. He's like, holy shit, that's a painting that got lost like 50, 60 years ago. And it turns out the production crew bought it from like a flea market and used it in the movie because they just thought it was a random painting. Turns out it was a super valuable lost painting that they found because it was in Stuart Little.
Wow.
There you go. Now you know.
So anyway, the Star Cops come up with a 3-pronged approach. Divis, of course, is going to hold down the fort, while Kenzie and Theroux go to investigate the Pluto 5, and Nathan goes to
talk with Alex,
but then investigate Christina Jansen's corpse. Mm-hmm. She doesn't know it's a corpse yet.
Mm-hmm. Kenzie is freaking out. As soon as they get to space and they see the bodies, Kenzie starts freaking out. And I'm like, does Kenzie have like an aversion to dead bodies? Kind of a bad thing to have if you're a cop.
Also kind of a bad thing to have if you're like a cop who's secretly involved in like underworld activities like Kenzie is trying to, or continually tries to like get into. But I thought the scene where Nathan kind of tells everyone what to do is funny because Kenzie is like not doing anything. She's literally just like sitting there in the office as far as I could tell. Mm-hmm. Nathan's like, I got a job for you, Kenzie. She's like, what? No, like, I don't want to do that. And Nathan makes some sort of quip about like her being unhappy with just lazing around and also being unhappy when she has work to do and just being unhappy in general.
Well, that's Kenzie for you.
Never mind the fact that she like weaseled her way back into the Star Cops after getting fired.
Yeah, so why is she unhappy? Seems a little sneaky of her. So
yeah, this is when Kenzie and Theroux sort of go and investigate, and they find all the dead bodies. Anna goes along with them as the representative.
Yeah, because apparently by some sort of weird, obscure, like, procedure/law, the representative of the company has to enter first. And, like, that's, like, a bad idea for so many reasons. Like,
once you figure out how much Hanamed is, like, actually covering up, it kind of makes sense that they would get this person who they have complete
for
control
the cover
over.
up. But I'm thinking, like, from practical, like, what if there's a shooter on board? Like, let's send the completely unarmed civilian representative on board first. Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah, it is. You know, maybe they can help the cops, like, take down this assailant who
By
maybe
getting gunned down themselves.
Exactly.
Great.
So they go on the ship. Everyone's dead. There's someone unaccounted for on the ship.
Yeah, there's supposed to be 8 crew members, but they've only found 7 bodies.
And this is done in such a weird way. You think this unaccounted for person is going to be a clue to the overarching mystery of this, but no, it's actually just a misplaced body that they find in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I thought they were setting it up to be Christina Jansen, but it's just a body they find.
They just use it as like a jump scare that doesn't even really work, in my opinion. But there are clues as to what's going on in this scene.
Yeah, they find a thermostat.
Right.
Anna Chu finds a thermostat, I think.
And it's set to 41.
She's already being a better investigator than Kenzie.
It's set to 41.2 degrees, which is really hot. Centigrade, Celsius, whatever it is.
Same thing.
Not a Fahrenheit, 41.2. Wait, isn't that a book? 41?
No, it's 451.
451 Fahrenheit. Oh, yeah, the temperature at which paper burns.
Is that really why it's 451?
Yeah, I think so.
Huh. I haven't read that book. So. The only Ray Bradbury book I've read is Something Wicked This Way Comes. And that book's pretty weird.
A lot of his stories are really weird. There's a good short story by him called Mars is Heaven, which has like that Philip K. Dick style, like paranoia type thing. It's set on Mars.
Something Wicked This Way Comes is about a fair that comes to a small town, and they have a carousel that you get on it, and it ages you. But if you
Final Destination carousel,
they have like a reason for doing this that I don't remember. But I remember the ending being the weirdest thing because the kids are the main characters. Defeat the main villain, who's like the guy who brings the carnival there every year, by putting him on the carousel and running it in reverse, so it de-ages him down to a baby, and they're like, we can raise him better this time.
Whoa.
Or something like that. And that's how it ends. I read this in middle school, so it was like really weird. Anyway, Nathan gets an update from Divas, who like really doesn't want to do his job this week. He just wants to be on the stationary bike all week.
Well, we find this out later, but let's just say it now. Like, Divas is going to get fired if he doesn't pass his fitness test, or he's going to get decommissioned, not fired.
Well, I think they're gonna they send him to Earth or something like they had to send Nathan a week ago when he almost got killed.
Right.
All these plots are blending together for me.
Nathan is on the ship that Jansen was known to be on, and he finds her dead body there as well. And lo and behold, it's also 41.2 degrees in there.
Yep.
So Nathan watches sort of a video that's just...
Christina Jansen.
Yeah, it's basically he finds out about her kind of sketchy past. She developed drug for Hanamed.
She got the Nobel Prize for it.
Right.
And then I wasn't sure if they like revoked her Nobel Prize or if it was just called into question because it was revealed that she had tested the drug on humans illegally.
Yeah, there was definitely a lawsuit about it because we get like a little short clip of her lawyer talking about it.
Then they do the zoom, enhance, zoom, enhance, zoom, enhance, zoom, enhance thing, which I guess is all right because it's the future, but also like, really?
You know that show NTSF SD SUV?
No.
Like, it's like a show that like riffs and parodies like cop shows. One of the best scenes from the show is they're like, all right, zoom in, change the angle. They go into this guy's pocket, unfold that piece of paper, and that's how they like read the little slip of paper that's in his pocket.
They do that in Red Dwarf too. which is the one which I've seen, which I think is the funniest pastiche of that, because they're zooming. He's like, all right, that reflection in the window, quick, get us to the other side. Zoom in, enhance the reflection. Like, okay, let's look. There's a droplet of water. Zoom in on that. Good. Reflect us back to the side of the road we want. Nice. Zoom in. Decrop. Like decrop the image. They zoom in.
Control Z.
Zoom in on the water droplet. Like, good. Now what's that in his eyes? It's the paper in his hand. Zoom in. What's the paper say? Of course. What's the other side of the paper say? Quick, flip the paper.
I'm the criminal.
And they're like, nice. Now print that out. See if I can find it to link in the show notes, because it's really funny. We could watch Red Dwarf for this show at some point, too.
Yeah, we could. Just add it to the list. At some point, we're going to actually have to have a list, because the list, I keep referencing the list like on the social media and like on the show.
But like you keep referencing it as if it exists.
It's just in our heads. But yeah, at some point, we'll have to actually create a list.
Anyway, David goes off on Kenzie. He's like, Kenzie, you've got no compassion. You're a good cop, but you'd be a great cop if you just actually cared about this job or like anything that you do.
Right, because he makes some like distasteful joke about like the people being dead or something. I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah. She asks Anna Shu if she's a psychopath, and Anna's like, "Do you want my like medical opinion?" Like,
but they also find another clue, or yeah, just another clue, sort of on the ship. Which is the box of pills. I think Theroux comes across it and he asks Anna what it is. She tells him that it's blood thinning medicine that the crew has to take to prevent their blood from clotting or something.
Right.
Because apparently being in space can do some stuff to you.
Yeah, we find that out a little later when Nathan talks with Alex. But before that, Nathan confronts Anna. Well, actually, first, before that even, I want to talk about this weird crossfade that I don't know if you noticed, but Divas is talking with Nathan. Divas says something about how Hanamed does everything, including the exercise bike that he's riding. And then as he's talking, it like crossfades into a cityscape, and he's like still talking, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? Because it kind of sounds like Divas is about to launch into like Hanamed makes all these things like a sales pitch, and we're going to get like a montage of Hanamed products. But then he just stops talking, and then it zooms out, and we're in Richard Ho's office, and I'm like, hang on, what just happened?
Well, Richard Ho's office looks really cool set-wise. It's like a dark, and like, I mean, this is all in Tokyo, but it has like this dark city vibe, like urban. Obviously, this is a near future sci-fi, but it even has like this urban fantasy feel-ish, like kind of Blade Runner-esque-ish almost. Not that I've seen Blade Runner.
You
I've just seen clips of it.
You really should. Blade Runner is now officially no longer the future because it's set in November 2019. Anyway, Nathan confronts Anna and he's like, what were they doing? Because she just tells everyone that it's just an air toxin. It's been removed. And then Nathan's like, this thing that you brought back is allegedly covered in the toxin. If I smash this box right now, will we die? He's like, no, don't do it. And he just smashes it on the table and it just shatters into a million pieces. We're like, damn, Nathan. Kind of a badass. And then Nathan's like, looks like we're all right, Anna. How do you explain that? And
then Anna sort of reveals that Hanamed is holding her family hostage.
Great. Don't know what the Star Cops can do about that, as we've found out multiple times this season that they have literally zero jurisdiction on Earth, and in fact are looked down upon on Earth.
Well, she actually kind of touches on that here, because she says that, Hanamed is just using her, and Nathan's like, yeah, and I can help you get out of that situation where you're just being used, and then her response is like, well, then you're just using me.
And then that's when Nathan asks Box, like, do I use people? And Box is like, how long of an answer do you want? And he's like, brief. And then Box is like, okay, you'll have to be more specific then.
Well, I think Box's ultimate answer is that Nathan does his job, which entails coercing people into doing what he wants. Which, this is a really interesting scene to me, because that line, let me just read that verbatim, because I actually wrote down what Box says. He says, it's part of your job to make people act against their natures, I think. And this entire scene was like really interesting to me because it's in this scene, Box is almost functioning like Nathan's conscience or something, and he's describing how machine-like Nathan is in fulfilling his job. Obviously, he has doubts about it, but according to Box, he fulfills the mission no matter what.
Right.
So Box is, I mean, very obviously, to me at least, a counterpart to Nathan, what with like having the same, they're both being played by David Calder, him acting as his sort of conscience figure in this scene. It's almost as if Box is more human and Nathan is more machine.
I think that's kind of what Chris Boucher was going for, though, with because Nathan is very cold emotionally to everybody. He doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve like David. He doesn't really ever get angry, but he doesn't really ever get like happy either. He's just Nathan.
Yeah, and I mean his one moment of real enjoyment that we've seen him express so far is when he's like doing his job in like a violent manner.
So you kind of have to wonder, like, is Box there to stop him from going too far?
Stop him from going ham, so to speak.
Be a really interesting, like, overarching plot about Nathan going too far.
I think that's where this is going, based on sort of his little bit of dialogue at the end of episode 2 and what happens at the end of this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the end of episode 2 gave us a great line from David, who's like, you could order me to do it. I don't have principles. David's still my favorite character.
Same here. Yeah, I mean, Divas had potential, definitely, as did Kenzie, but, they're not doing themselves any favors.
Divas is just the comic relief now.
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of want to talk about at the end of this is, like, how much Divas has been relegated to, like, just comic relief, but it kind of sucks.
Anyway, Nathan's talking with Alex, and Alex theorizes that the people on the Pluto 5 died because of something due to low gravity. This is when he has the whole conversation about Christina Jansen, because she killed herself, apparently. That's the story Hannah Med is selling them on. And
Nathan also, we should mention, believes that she committed suicide as well.
But Alex is like, if I had said something, I should have noticed. Like, I should have known that she wasn't acting normal. And that's how I kind of got the idea that maybe it was something more like he was close enough to her to, like, know on a deeper level. He says something like, I blame myself. And Nathan says you shouldn't do that because there's nothing you could have done. And then Alex says, well, it's hard not to think that. It's my fault. Yeah,
and Nathan's sort of reasoning behind this is not that, like, he's wrong for thinking that, but that, like, thinking that line of thinking would, like, drive him crazy, so he shouldn't do it.
But that's kind of like Alex basically being close enough to Christina where he's blaming himself as if it's his fault makes me think that he was her one of, if not the closest friend / something more to Christina Jansen that she had.
Yeah, and he at first actually denies her suicide. He's like, there's no way she could have done that. Like, she wasn't the type of person to kill herself.
This is actually a really good... I liked this scene a lot, actually. This is my favorite scene in the episode.
Yeah, it's a good scene.
Because I think it's a good character building moment between Nathan and Alex, and it's the first time we've seen Alex like not being an obstructionist to the Star Cops and seeing that he's not just a bureaucrat, basically, that he actually has like a human side to him, and that he's also basically just here trying to do his job.
Sure, yeah. Meanwhile, Divas is also just trying to keep his job because he's still on the exercise machine. Nathan comes in and he's like, Divas, like I told you once and I'm not going to say it again. Except I am going to say it again. Get off the machine.
But then he's like, wait, this is a brilliant idea. I need you to infiltrate Hanamed and we'll use your physical as cover. And Divas is like, wait, no. And Nathan's like, well, I'm not due for a physical or anything because I got sent to Earth like 2 weeks ago. And David and Kenzie aren't due for another couple of months. So it's going to have to be you, Divas.
So part of this doesn't add up to me. Like, Star Cop's physical is taking place in Tokyo? Like, is that what this is?
No, I think the thing is that you can get it done by like an independent contractor, and they're just going to use Hanamed to do Divas's physical.
Guess, yeah.
And I guess pay them off in the process to keep Divas on the payroll or something.
Well, turns out Devis's definition of espionage is to walk right into Hanamed and knock on Richard Ho's door.
Yeah, so they have these facial scanners that like ask you for your name, and they check your voice print, and then they check your facial identity. So Devis just walks up to Ho's office, goes, "I'm Richard Ho," and the machine's like, "Try again," and he's like, "I'm Richard Ho," and it's like, "Nope, try again." And then Richard Ho just rounds the corner. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing, Devis?" Because Devis has got, yeah. He's like, "What are you doing, Devis?" And he's like, just got lost, just got lost.
Freaking amazing cop. The worst part about this is that, like, people like Theroux and I believe Kenzie actually don't have cop backgrounds. They weren't cops before they joined the Star Cops.
Right. And they were, like, way better at espionage than Devis.
Was Kenzie a cop before she joined the Star Cops?
I don't think we know.
Yeah, I don't think we know. Theroux wasn't for sure. Nathan was, and Devis was.
Well, we don't really know what Nathan was. He was like in that weird limbo period where he didn't have anywhere to go up. Like, he couldn't promote up unless they sent him to Star Cops, and he didn't want to go to Star Cops, and I don't really remember.
He had like an investigation background for sure. He was in charge of investigators, if not like an investigator himself.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just like a project manager or something who like knew how to get things done.
Maybe that's why they sent him to Star Cops, because they were completely ineffectual. Maybe that's why everybody hates the Star Cops now, is because Nathan came in and they're actually doing their job. Because before Nathan came in, they had like Kenzie and Hubble on the payroll, and I guess everyone was just looking the other way, so the Star Cops were completely like useless.
Everyone was corrupt except Theroux, who was like the anti-corrupt cop, who was like too good to be a cop.
But now that Nathan came in, they're like doing their jobs, and that's why everyone hates them.
Maybe.
Anyway, yeah, Anna Shu breaks into Ho's office and steals a bunch of information, and she sends it to Nathan. Nathan's passed out at the time, but he wakes up and he hears bits and pieces of it, and then he tries to call her back, and the company's like, "Sorry, Anna's not in her compartment right now," and he's like, "Wow, that's suspicious."
Yeah. So there's actually a scene like in the midst of this which has Nathan performing experiments with the meds on like a bunch of mice. And he ends up killing them in the process, which is how he kind of discovers that the meds aren't all they appear to be.
Right.
And that's when Anna Shun contacts him. I was like, should have put Box on airplane mode while you sleep.
I don't think Box has an airplane mode.
But yeah, then there's just sort of a weird off-putting-ish cut to a sauna, which presumably is in Hanamed.
Well, first Nathan tells him that he tells him to leave a message. He's coming to visit Richard Ho, and then it cuts to the sauna, and Nathan just comes in and basically explains everything that happened.
Right. He takes a shot or whatever with Richard Ho, and then reveals that the experimental drug that Janssen was developing was in his drink. And the sauna's temperature is increasing, moment by moment, and it's about to hit 41.2, and Richard Ho is like, "Oh, no, I don't want to die, please."
And Nathan's like, "Thanks for confessing." Because Christina Janssen developed this drug, and Hanamed was testing it illegally by putting it into the blood thinners or whatever that the astronauts on the Pluto 5 had to take every day.
Right. Which is what ended up killing them.
Well, a faulty thermostat ended up killing them. That was the thing, is that the thermostat wasn't supposed to be that high, but it like broke and then went too high, and then it killed them. So they would have been fine if the thermostat hadn't broken. Then they like tried to cover it up.
Yeah, and I guess Janssen's guilt prompted her to kill herself in the same way.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure about Janssen's death, whether it was Hanamed covering their tracks because she knew too much, or if she actually killed herself.
I think she killed... I mean, what I sort of got out of it was that she wanted to confirm the fault in her drug by testing it on herself, and I guess her guilt kind of prompted her to test it on herself to the point where she's like, if I effed up and these people's deaths are my fault, then I'm going to die in the same way.
Yeah, I don't know, actually. Wasn't sure.
I don't want to undersell this scene though, and I don't want to undersell how much Nathan is like really enjoying threatening Richard and
I think he enjoys watching
yeah.
Richard grovel at his feet to
Yeah,
survive.
he does definitely. He's laughing. This is one of the only times we see like Nathan laugh and smile.
I thought it was hilarious how much he's enjoying it. I was like, wow, Nathan's found his true calling.
Yeah, killing and threatening people.
He didn't actually kill him because he didn't actually put the drugs. It was all
Yeah,
bluff.
no, of course, yeah, but he has killed people, and that is his true calling, as we know.
Yes, murder. The true calling is murder.
An instinct for murder. So all's well that ends well. Presumably, Richard Ho is behind bars. Divis.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't really know. Divis passed his test.
Nice.
He's still a Star Cop. And then we get the most odd scene in Star Cops so far.
Wait, okay, before we get to that, Kenzie mentions that Nathan's on his way back with a new recruit, and she pulls up the screen, and it's like Anna shooting, like, no!
Yeah, you didn't know.
Please, no!
I knew she joined. I knew of this character.
I didn't know until this moment, and I was like, oh no. And I know they're not going to do the, like, Blake 7 thing where they have a character just on the Liberator at the end of the story, and then next week they're just like conspicuously absent, and you're like,
No.
wait a minute.
No, she's a Star Cop. Yeah. It wouldn't be as bad if her acting was better, I would say.
I disagree. I think 5 is a crowd. I think like even if she was the greatest actor in existence, like adding yet another Star Cop is a mistake.
Yeah, maybe you might be right about that. We'll have to see what they do with this 5-person team next episode.
I guess they made the Liberator work, and that was 7. So it's only 7 if you count Zen, I think.
Yeah, it was 6 plus Zen.
Anyway, yeah. So the glorious scene. Continue. It's all
Yeah,
you. Take it away.
I mean, I didn't think there was going to be a scene in Star Cop stranger than the rollerblader in episode 2. But this takes the cake. Divis has passed his test, and they're sort of joking with him about it, Theroux and Kenzie, that is.
Well, they're joking about what everyone's expertise is, like their place in Star Cops.
Yeah. I forget what everyone's was. Theroux's was like...
Well, Theroux and Kenzie had the same, and it was like... And they were engineers.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, Kenzie was maybe an engineer and not like a cop beforehand.
Nathan was like investigation or something. Anna is like chemistry or biology or whatever, like the science stuff. And they're like, so what are you, Divis?
And he sort of just like flexes, like actually flexes, not like expression-wise flexes, but he sort of flexes and he's like, destruction. And then he like parodies like karate or something.
Well, he does like a really very racist Japanese impersonation.
Yeah. And then there's like a flying kick across the room.
He lunge kicks towards the camera, and like where David's sitting, and David has to like jump out of the way, and it like ends on the lunge kick.
Freeze framed
right before it like hits the camera almost into however the song goes.
Reach across the stars. Let them know you're stars. Let them know you're with me. Send out the word. I'll remember you.
And it's just like, how it goes. This is the greatest, but also worst moment of Star Cops.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
It's so out of place with not only this episode, but everything that Star Cops has tried to be before this point.
Notice how, like, as soon as Chris Boucher stopped writing the episodes, they stopped ending on, like, a dark note and started ending on, like, a humorous note.
I wonder what that says. Doesn't, according to what we saw, John Collee writes 3 episodes of the show, and I think this is his first, so he probably writes, of the next 3 episodes that we have to watch, 2 of them.
Huh. I know the last episode is written by Chris Boucher.
So John probably writes episodes 7 and 8.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and double check that right now, actually. Yeah, he does write episode 7. He does write episode 8.
Yeah, so 2 more writers left, and he's one of them. Chris Boucher's the other. But I mean, I'm looking forward to his next couple of scripts because I really liked this episode. I think this is my favorite episode.
Definitely my second favorite. I still really like episode 2. I think that was like one of the greatest episodes of maybe even just in general that I've ever watched of anything.
Really?
Definitely
Wow.
one of the best things I've watched for our podcasts, I think. I like it that much. Just the
Huh.
way everything came together, the way it was all paced, the characters, I just really loved it. But I like this episode quite a bit.
Wow.
I wanted to talk about something that I guess I sort of joked about last week, but also was like, I think was a valid concern last week, where I was like, I think they're going to be reusing the same plot every week, and kind of looking like I was right. Because last week I think I mentioned, like, every week the plot is some company or space station, they hate the space cops, they're doing something shady, they're covering up something. Because for 3 weeks now, it was the Ronald Reagan, then it was the Italian mining corporation, and now it was Hanamed. Doing the same thing all 3 weeks. Something sketchy happened. They're covering it up. They don't want the Star Cops to know. Like, in all three cases, it's been like that, basically. And maybe it wouldn't be so annoying, I guess is the word I'm looking for, because I don't know if it's necessarily bad yet, but I do find it, like, frustrating. It would be less frustrating if they weren't, like, back to back to back. Like, 3 weeks in a row, we have these very similar conceits. Sure, maybe the crimes are slightly different. Last week's was very odd with the whole smuggling uranium. But, like, the whole, like, the impetus for the crime is that this company is doing something shady, and then they have to cover it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not bothered by that, like, at all.
Yeah, because
I'm
you
not
like when
bothered by
things
it.
do the same thing over and
Yeah.
over again. So
I
for
don't,
you, you're like, hell yeah.
I don't even feel that it is, like, the same thing. Like, I mean, yeah, it is. Like, I guess if you look at the overarching plot of each episode, it is pretty much the same. But, like, each episode feels pretty distinct to me because of the different characters and stuff. And, like, the Star Cops interacting with each other, all doing different things in each episode type thing. Like, this one, the big thing was, like, Davis and his stupid fitness test. But, like, their interactions have been, like, a highlight of each episode to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, the minutiae of each episode aren't the same. But that's what I'm saying. The conceit, the impetus for the crime in all three has been the same.
Yeah.
It's just like there are other motives for crime, Like there are other reasons why people commit crimes other than covering up something shady. There are other reasons people commit crimes other than just trying to make money off of things.
Well, I mean, this show is, like, working towards this, like, dark, like, not dystopia in the sense of, like, it's post-apocalyptic, but, like, dystopia in the sense that, like, it's corporate and, like, corporations are evil. And, like, they're, for these past couple of episodes, that's been very clear and very, like, beat you over the head with it. And, like, it works.
It works because they're doing it every week. If they hadn't been doing it every week, I don't think it would have worked. That's kind of like all I really wanted to talk about for this episode.
Yeah, I mean, my thing that I kind of wanted to talk about here is somewhat in line with that. I wanted to talk about naming in this episode. So, Hanamed is like a Japanese company, and Anna Shun is like Japanese, but Richard Ho, who seems to be like in charge of everything, is not, right. Like,
Yeah,
that
Ho
name is
isn't
not
a Japanese
and
name, is it?
No, I don't believe it is, and Richard for sure is not. Not that Anna is either, but, like, yeah, I just thought it was interesting how, like, this foreign guy, which also, like, is not the excuse. What word am I looking for? It's like the explanation for, like, because when they were first conversing, I was like, okay, so, like, it's really weird that they're conducting all their business in English. It's like this Japanese company. But then I realized there was, like, this thing going on of, like, Richard Ho is not Japanese, is like a foreign, like, guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really don't have much more to say about it other than pointing it out. It's just kind of interesting, especially when he really disparages Anna. He's like, we don't trust the words of the daughters of fishermen or whatever. He's like, go back to your, dad's fishing business if you don't want to be here or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like, again, like with the Italians, some potentially subtle, potentially racist undertones, I should say. With the Italians, it was like every Italian in this episode is a bad guy, right? With this week, obviously, that's not the case because Anna's like, she's going to join the Star Cops. But, like, Davis's thing at the end, like, what is that?
Yeah.
And also, like, Richard's line, like, we don't trust the daughters of fishermen. Like, that's obviously the character being not sexist or racist, discriminatory.
Yeah, why? But why not? Why not racist? Like, isn't that him being racist as well?
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is that doesn't necessarily have to be racially coded. I mean, it is in this case, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
My interpretation of that line is like, we don't trust Japanese people.
I mean, if that's the way you're reading it, then it's like impossible not to see how it's racist. To me, it was like, oh, maybe it's like a caste system kind of thing where it's like, which doesn't necessarily have to be racially motivated.
I guess.
I do like that we get different nationalities every week. Like last week we had the Italians, and this week we have Japanese. I guess it's nice to see a multinational show, even if it does it somewhat poorly.
Well, here's the thing: like you mentioned, how the overarching plots are kind of the same for episodes. What was it, 4, 5, and 6? Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. And every time it's like a new, like, nation doing the bad stuff. Like at first it was the Americans, and then it was the Italians, and now it's the Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know if the point is to show that everybody can suck or what, but
everyone who's not British can suck.
Yeah, because there was an Australian being shady last week too. Wow, Chris.
Because remember, Nathan and Davis are British. Theroux has denounced all nationality. Kenzie is Australian, but she's a little shady herself, you know? She's a little shady herself.
Wow, great. Thanks, Chris. We're on to you. Yeah,
that's pretty much all I had.
Mm-hmm. What's next? How many of Britain's 10 actors are in this?
Yeah.
I only really looked up Richard Reese, who played Richard Ho. I realized it was kind of weird that his name was Richard and his character's name was Richard. But
maybe that's why he got the part.
That'd be kind of weird.
Now.
He was in Law and Order UK. He's also in EastEnders, which it feels like everybody's been in.
He was in the Tomorrow People, the Nickelodeon remake of the Tomorrow People.
Thanks, Nickelodeon.
Yeah, I looked up everyone after my success with looking up everyone from last week when like the tour guide was on Blake 7 or whatever it was. So obviously the biggest new actor we have on this show is Sayo Inaba, or however you pronounce her name. Mm-hmm. That was probably completely incorrect, but playing Anna Shun. And she doesn't have many credits under her belt, but from what she does have, it honestly seems like she just plays like token Japanese woman in like every single show that she's been in. But yeah, that's what it seemed like to me.
Great.
And it kind of seems like Star Cops is doing that trend. Yeah.
Great.
We have Dawn Keeler playing Christina Jansen's dead body. She was in Vanity Fair, the 1987 version of Vanity Fair. She was in How to Get Ahead in Advertising, which is like a semi-famous movie. She was in like the Poirot show that ran for a really long time.
Because they were doing every Poirot story, and they did by the end.
And she was, like many British actors, in The Bill. We have Susan Tan playing the receptionist for Animed. She played herself. Her only interesting credit was that she played herself in a 2014 episode of Nova. Weirdly enough.
That is actually very weird. What else?
Now for our infamous quotes section.
Infamous? Why is it infamous?
I don't know.
Why is it infamous?
I honestly have no idea. It just is. So I don't know if you had any you wanted to go over in this episode, but I did.
I have one quote. When Kenzie's talking with Anna in the ship and asks if she's a psychopath, Anna's like, do you want my professional opinion? And Kenzie's like, no. And she says, I don't remember what Anna says, like, you need to calm down or something. And Kenzie just says, I was asking you as a doctor, not a Buddhist. And this is another one of those lines that was like, could be like casually coded as being potentially racist.
I mean, Kenzie has previously also said some like pretty
some questionable things.
Pretty like solidly racist things.
Or Kenzie.
Like, or no, it was actually that she was like on board with the race gun. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, the race gun. That was my only quote.
Yeah, I had a couple. Nathan, money is to science what politics is to police work. It's a pretty good one, you know. Obviously in favor of like corporate backing of science and also political intervention in police work. No, I'm just kidding. And then I had one from Richard Ho, actually. He says, the further we pursue knowledge, the more dangers we create.
That's a good one.
Which also is, he's just using that as like a sort of playoff thing of like, you know, got to pay the cost to like create successful drugs. Mm-hmm. Got to sacrifice people. But like, yeah, that's a pretty good quote, I think.
Yeah, that's a good one. No movie quotes this week.
No, I didn't pick up on
no movie
any
references either that I saw.
No.
Anurag Zone doesn't have any either.
No.
Checked before the episode. They do say something about Nathan and David referencing a song, but that doesn't qualify for our segment.
Yeah, there's a line, I actually wrote it down. There's no such thing as original sin. Apparently the co-pilot of the Pluto 5 was into 1980s pop.
Weird.
Convenient for when this is being made. Convenient.
Weird.
I think I looked it up, I believe it's a line from an Elvis Costello song.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we've got quite a few emails and stuff we want to respond to.
Yeah, and I want to go ahead and read a few tweets as well because they had some feedback.
This is Sergeant Trainer reaching out for the first time on Inevitable. Star Cops, Torchwood, Zenith, and Lex. Hello again, gang. Just felt like dropping you a line to let you know that I'm still very much listening to you, even if I hadn't had time for as much feedback. I'm finally working my way up through the Trust Your Doctor catalog, though I admit I did start with the tail end of Patrick Troughton leading into Pertwee. I have to admit, I am one of those for whom the Pertwee era is probably my favorite overall era of the classic series. I used to say that Pertwee was my favorite Doctor. It's probably more accurate to say that I love the unit guys, especially the Brigadier, and that is the era that had the most unit in it. Delgado was also great, obviously. Also, thank you very much for adding actual episode titles to your back catalog. Makes things a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm glad that actually is helping, yeah.
Not sure I would have gone with Inevitable for the title of the new one. I think it probably would have been your best move to just stick with Zenith as the title and proclaim that you were covering the zenith of science fiction as your subject matter, with Blake 7 simply being the first show you happen to cover. I think that gets you more listenership carryover. Good choice on Star Cops for your first new series. I love that show. It was one of my favorites. I still have them all on VHS, taped off the TV. I was so into that show, I edited together a low-tech music video of the series using 2 VCRs and an RCA cord and a splitter to mix in a musical track. And may I say, I really like that big chunky pistol spring head in episode 2. Sweet, smart to start with a short series that can be covered quickly. However, I'm considerably less pleased by the various series you have lined up after Star Cops, none of which I'm particularly interested in. Seems like once Star Cops is over, you won't have much content for me for a long time to come. I would again strongly urge you to consider covering Lex in its entirety. This is a show that feels tailor-made for your personalities. I think you both would get a kick out of it. It'd be highly entertaining, thought-provoking, and hilarious. If you didn't want to cover all 4 seasons in a row, maybe you could rotate through different shows, taking a season at a time. That might help keep the whole thing fresh, really. And it would shorten the periods when you might be covering something that some listeners would be skipping. I've mentioned them before, but you guys may want to check out the British podcast The Time Vault, which similarly covers a whole range of different science fiction TV series and movies, but rotates them in and out each week so that they are never covering the same thing for an extended period. Great podcast, one of the few other podcasts that has covered Blake 7 in its entirety. I would also again urge you to cover Torchwood sooner rather than later. I know you've said you're going to do it once you catch up to current Doctor Who, but that is still so far away. And that 3rd season is so pertinent to Capaldi. It would be nice if you got to it while Capaldi was still fresh in your minds. Here's an idea. What if you did Torchwood for your 2nd series with Inevitable instead of that one with the stoned children? That might get more Doctor Who listeners over there checking out the other podcast. It would also give you an excuse to cover Torchwood without waiting until Capaldi's history. Lastly, it would give you a semi-familiar subject matter, Doctor Who-ish, with which to experiment and solidify the ongoing format of your new podcast. How's about it? That's it for now. Looking forward to Star Cops Episode 3, Sergeant Drano, Station 7, The Door.
Yeah, so there are a lot of good and really thoughtful recommendations, I think, in this email.
And a couple that we already thought about and discarded, like keeping Zenith as the name.
Yeah, we really heavily went back and forth between, like, starting a new podcast and just making Zenith like a catch-all podcast. And I think the reason why we went with, creating this new podcast was that we both considered Zenith episode 54 to be like the best thing we've ever done. And we kind of wanted that to be like the big finale.
Yeah, we also felt that starting a new podcast I thought that continuing it under the Zenith name would potentially diminish the place of the Blake 7 in like our podcasting repertoire, as it would become just another season of Inevitable. Whereas as it stands now, it's something that we did that we really enjoyed, that we consider potentially some of the best content that we've made.
Right.
And we wanted that to stand on its own.
Right. But that is something that we heavily like flip-flopped back and forth between.
In regards to what's coming up next.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've said this before. We're pretty locked into Children of the Stones as season 2. We wanted to do 2 pretty short shows right off the bat just to get a couple under our belt, and Star Cops and Children of the Stones were recommended to us. We've gotten a lot of other recommendations. I know we said we were probably going to do UFO for season 3, but
then
I
we
think
had a couple people say move Sapphire and Steel earlier.
Yeah, we've gotten Sapphire and Steel, Star Maidens, the Tripods.
I haven't heard about that one.
It's another sort of kids show. I think it's like 25 episodes.
And we keep coming up with new ones on the show too. Red Dwarf, Space 1999.
Right, and Lex, I know, is one that you recommended even back when we were doing Zenith. And yeah, I think that's the idea of like doing individual seasons rather than having to do the full show is a really good idea. So,
and it's something we actually considered for UFO, because UFO was 2 seasons.
We thought it was 2 seasons, but it was just one.
Actually, we thought it was 2 seasons, so we thought we were going to do each season separately as a separate season of Inevitable and put something in between, in the middle. So it's definitely something that we considered, and I think we will do for shows that are multiple seasons, because we will have to do multiple season shows like that at some point.
Right. So I think season 3 is still up in the air at this point. We have a lot to kind of think about there.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably gonna be something someone recommended.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't want to make it look like we're playing favorites with who recommended what. So maybe the best way is just to take all the recommendations, throw them into a hat, and just pick something randomly.
Yeah. Some of these shows are also different lengths. Some of these seasons are also different lengths. So depending on what else we're doing at the time season 3 goes out, that might...
Yeah, so there's a consideration of like how long it's going to take us to get through that season.
Right.
It's part of the reason why we wanted to do 2 short ones. First, because there's a lot of flux period in both our lives right now. So getting these podcasts like done is a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a lot more time than you do. But I found out that Lex's first season is only 4 episodes, so
just season 1 as a season of Inevitable. Talking about Torchwood. Our plan was to do it when we caught up to the show, which you say is really far away, but plot twist is actually going to be like January or February. Is actually only like 3 to 4 months away at most. Yeah, we have 11 episodes of Series 11 plus 2 more episodes to record, so 14 weeks, 3 months, basically.
Yeah, and sort of about maybe including Torchwood as part of Inevitable, or some of the other Doctor Who spin-offs as part of Inevitable, like Class. I don't really know what Class is. I just know it's a Doctor Who spin-off.
It's only 10 episodes and they got canceled, so that'd be a very short season of Inevitable if we wanted to do it.
Yeah, that might be an option of like putting these Doctor Who spin-offs on Inevitable instead of Trust Your Doctor.
Yeah, there's the potential that Trust Your Doctor goes seasonal as well once we catch up. Because we will be out of content for that, or doing audios or books, and then, or if we make it seasonal, then like, I don't know, rotating between all 3 podcasts instead of just rotating between Triple Play and Inevitable right now, which is what's going on. There's like a lot of flux around what's going to happen when Trust Your Doctor catches up, which is a lot sooner than I think you realize, Sergeant Drano, in your email.
But we will have a plan.
We will have a plan. we don't necessarily have one at this moment, but we will have a plan. Speaking of which, Sergeant Drano, if you want to be on the show, email us.
Or unless you want to be on like Children of the Stones, which you have no interest in. But, maybe you still want to be on it. Who knows?
That is the one thing that I don't think we've said on the show that I like about the fact that we made the seasonals, that we can basically get as many guests as we want on, and it won't ever feel like it's going to get stale. Because I think, like with I know with Trust Your Doctor, it was like, we didn't want to do a guest like every single week because that's a weekly podcast and like that could get pretty stale. Like it wouldn't be special anymore. But since we're seasonal now and there's going to be like slight gaps between the seasons, we can basically get as many guests on as we want without it ever feeling stale.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to doing as many collaborations as we can. So,
Me too. So if there's anyone out there who is interested in any of the shows coming up that we're watching or just wants to be on the show to talk about them, shoot us an email. We've had fans on before, and it's always been a good time.
Yeah.
It's always a good experience, in my opinion. But thank you for reaching out, Sergeant Drano. That's a lot of good, I think, constructive, I wouldn't say criticism, but Advice. Yeah, advice is a good word. A lot of thoughtful comments, and hope you're enjoying those old Trust Your Doctor episodes.
Oh boy.
I think I've got a couple comments on the website that I want to respond to. I know you've got a couple tweets.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I got a couple comments from the website that we'll read from someone named David. I don't think it's the same David who emailed us. So these three comments on episode 3 of this podcast. I didn't get that David John Pope's character, sorry I can't spell his name, made the worm program. Chandri, I guess. I thought he said he got the information from the military. David asks him, is the source military? Have you ever noticed that the Earth-Moon shuttle model looks just like the old Concorde? The guns were brought from Australia, so it does kind of make sense that Kenzie would be on the shuttle. The glass ball thing is meant to be a bomb. Think Divas calls it a boxer. Wait till you get to episode 5, the worst episode of the series. I tend to skip that episode on rewatches. I think at the time there was some kind of sporting event, and this episode was put back to nearly 10 p.m. at night. Probably didn't help the viewing ratings. On episode 2, Nathan says to Patton it'll be 8 years before they can recover the craft, and if the crew are dead, he'll be charged with murder. And if they survive, there will be other charges, and possibly the crew will sue. We don't see Patton again after this episode. It's probably safe bet he got fired. And then on episode 1, don't you find it interesting that when Nathan is in the interview room that the Americans and Russians aren't on the video call? There are like 4 video calls happening at once, but only 2 speak. Presumably in this future, video calls are charged by the minute. I get one is supposed to be Swedish and the other Eastern German. He says to her, quote, unlike you, I was elected to office, unquote. I think we did get some sort of indication that it charges by the minute, like later on when they send that fake message to
Lee.
To Lee, but also to Nathan to lure him to Earth. I think Bach says something about how much it was charged.
They charged, Unicom or whatever the company was called charges by message. So maybe the other, maybe like video call companies have a similar model where they're like charging by minute rather than call or something.
Also didn't notice that it looked like the Concorde, but I will notice it every time now.
Things you can't unsee.
Just like the colon D face.
Yeah.
In the shuttle. That's our Twitter, Facebook, our Twitter profile picture now.
Yeah. Flipped upside down, of course, to highlight the colon D-ness of it.
Thanks for reaching out, David.
Yeah.
I appreciate you leaving some comments for us. And when you left those comments, we had already watched episode 5, which... was episode 5 the one we considered the worst?
Episode 5 was the one with the Italians.
Oh.
I think it's a good episode.
I think it's all right. Yeah, I think like episode 3 was been the weakest so far, in my opinion. Episode 3 or 4 now, I can't remember. One of them I just remember being like, this was really boring. I think it was episode
4 was the one with the American.
Yeah, the one with the Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
I think it was episode 4. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a couple tweets that had some feedback, so I just kind of wanted to read those or just touch on what they say. So very Pete Lambert on Twitter.
Very spooky Pete Lambert.
Yeah, not anymore.
before Halloween.
Yeah. Mentions that we pronounced I honestly don't know the correct pronunciation. Bergerac, I think, or it's like a French pronunciation, but we pronounced it wrong. We said Bergerac. He puts in his tweet hashtag Burger Rack, which
hey, it's a burger rack now.
But I was like, oh shoot, we pronounced this wrong. So I tried to look up some interviews where people said the name, but like every time they said the name, they would mumble across multiple interviews.
So maybe that's how you say it. Maybe you just say like Burger Rack. They were on Burger Rack.
No one knows how to pronounce it.
They're all just like, shit, I don't know how to pronounce this. Better just mumble.
But no, so thanks for that correction there. It's not Burger Rack.
It is on this show. Hashtag Burger Rack.
So we got another comment from @Sean_T_Ellis. He's responding to episode 1. He says, his first tweet, he just says, excellent, and he likes the podcast. It was a walk down memory lane. Had fair criticism and interesting behind-the-scenes stuff. Well worth listening. Just started listening to episode 2. Keep up the good work. And then for episode 2, he says, episode 2 just as good. Conversations with the Dead is probably my favorite. A couple clarifications. The Charles de Gaulle is the European space station. Makes sense. SIAN is pronounced Sharn. Thanks for that.
Good to know.
And he says, and you're right that not being able to prosecute immediately leads to a stronger ending.
Nice.
Yeah. So glad you're enjoying the podcast, Sean _T_Ellis.
Thanks for the comments. I'm going to assume your name is Sean.
Yeah.
Unless your Twitter handle is completely unrelated to your real name, which would be interesting. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
Wonder if we got any Facebook comments.
No, we didn't.
Oh, I was just trying to riff off the fact that you're never on Facebook.
No, I'm definitely going to up my Facebook game. That's something I actually want to do now that I understand how Facebook works. 4 years into me using it.
5.
5, whatever.
We should make an Instagram for the podcast, too.
Yeah, maybe we should. As much as I hate all these social media pages...
Maybe we
probably shouldn't be revealing.
That's why you're the social media manager for the podcast.
I also want to start doing more article and blog post style posts on the site.
Be my guest.
Because the site is just a feed of our episodes at this point, and there's more we could do with it.
Be my guest. Really. Be my guest.
First, I need some topics. I'll get back to you once I come up with some topics.
I will contribute minimally.
Right.
I wrote one article on the website once that was just a making of our Matrix episode because I had to splice together 2 separate recordings for that.
Yeah, so we can definitely expand from there.
That was almost 2 years ago now. I think it was 2 years ago.
It was more than 2 years ago. It was 2015 or early 2016.
Well, on that note, thank you to everyone who reached out. And if you would like to reach us by email, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Star Cops, and what show we should do next after Children of the Stone, because that's set in stone. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify at Inevitable. I guess nobody knows this. Maybe we should reveal this, but we submitted the podcast to Spotify, and then I don't know if they rejected us or just didn't tell us what happened, but it just vanished from my submission page. It just vanished. And 2 weeks later, I tried to resubmit it to Spotify, and they were like, sorry, your podcast is already on Spotify. But I was like, no, it's not. It's not in my catalog. There's a little Spotify for podcasters page that tells you all your podcasts and listenership numbers. And I couldn't find it when I searched for it, so I had to email support, and the guy just emailed back I looked in the back end, and I've officially made sure that your podcast is on Spotify now, and then it showed up in my catalog, and I was like, I don't know what went on behind the scenes there, but we're officially on Spotify now, so that's all that matters. Leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook, also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be watching A Double Life. But until then, the end.